Hi, Brooke. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Oh, I'm so glad you are coming on to Ministry with Coffee today. And I know that you just wrote a book, and we're going to talk about that today. And I want to know what inspired it and what God has taught you through that book. So let's go ahead and begin and share a little bit about your story and what motivated you to even write the book to begin with. So, can you share that?
Of course. I have been a stepmom for almost 16 years. I was, the good little Christian girl who followed all the rules and saved myself for marriage. And then I met this guy, and he happened to be divorced and have children. And I could not explain it, but I just had peace. Part of me didn't want to have peace because I was like, no, no, this isn't what I had planned, God. Um, but I did. I had peace, and so we embarked on that journey. And when you look back on your life, sometimes you feel like all these things kind of led you up to the,
Hmm.
the the path that you're on. And so there were things like, one, I'm a teacher, and so I always work with kids, and so I felt like that kind of prepared me to step into a marriage and instantly have children. So in that journey of learning, one, how to be a mom to someone else's children, how to be a new wife, and then also how to be a wife, a mom, and then also account for it. These children have a mother that lives in a different home who is also parenting. And so, in all of that journey, like I will say at the beginning, it was not pretty, as a lot of new things usually aren't, but in that process, I felt very alone. I had, I didn't know really none of my friends, none of my circle were stepmoms or had been divorced or had kids even at that point. And so when hard moments would come, I didn't know where to go. Obviously, I knew, I was like, I need to turn to Jesus. But even that, I'm like, God, like, I need you sitting right here next to me and telling me what I'm supposed to do because this is hard. And
Yeah.
I remember at the beginning, I called it my cry closet. And I would just go in the closet and just cry because I would feel just isolated and alone. And I knew that was the enemy. And so I had a couple friends that I would just kind of reach out to and just say, hey, will you pray with me? Because I'm really having a hard time with this right now. So then going through that journey and going through the years and then going through hard years, but then going through some
Right.
really good years, like having some really incredible moments of seeing God's hand move in our
Hmm.
blend. I was like, you know what? I bet other people feel alone.
Yeah.
And then we actually did, my husband and then his ex-wife and I actually did this thing called the Blended Challenge. And it was in a season where my husband had been kind of out of work, and so he had time on his hands, and so we ended up just kind of almost writing a steps to follow of like, hey, here's what we've
Hmm.
done that has helped us be successful, not perfect, but
Hmm.
successful. And so, and in that process, I was got to hear from other stepmoms, and this was kind of one of the first times where I'd actually heard their struggles going, I felt that too. I felt that too. And then even some of theirs going, oh my word, I'm so sorry. Like I cannot imagine that happening. And so
Hmm.
it to me that was kind of the birthing process of this devotional where it's like, okay, I wish I had had, you know, even if you had like a manual, here's how to be a good stepmom. Even like they have manuals on how to be a good mom, nothing can prepare you for live.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I was like, you know what? Though, and even with devotionals, there's a ton of parenting and being a good mom, but I was like, okay, but how does this apply to me? Because these aren't my biological children and I still love them deeply. But what authority do I have here? What does God
Right.
say about this role? And so I just kind of started praying. And a little over a year ago, um, God is very sarcastic with me. And so it's
Mhm.
like we were sitting and I was just kind of talking to him and he just goes,
You
"So,
mean sarcastic or honest?
yeah, good point. Yes. It's a little bit of both." And but he's just I feel like he talks very real with me and he's just like, "So why don't you write one?" And
Oh.
I was like, "Okay, yes, I'll write that, God." He gets me. That's our kind of back and forth. And he was like, "No, really, why don't you write it?" And I was like, "Okay." I mean, I was just thinking, I'm going to type up some notes and then I'll say, "See, I did it, God." Um and then when I started, it was just like, I mean, I felt like it poured out of me.
Mhm.
And just where it, I mean, and I still remember it. There were some chapters that I was writing that I was just sobbing through them because some of it was almost reliving other people's pain or reliving my pain. But then tears of pain turned to tears of gratitude of we're
Mhm.
not there anymore. But I
Mhm.
know that there are people that are. And so
Yeah.
that through that process of writing, I reached out to other people that I knew were in blended families or that had even been divorced but maybe didn't have step yet, but just getting all these perspectives
Mhm.
and hearing the stories and sharing those. And so then turning that into, okay, so if this happens or when this happens, what can you do? And that
Mhm.
kind of birthed the process of what the
Mhm.
devotional looks like, where we're going to start with scripture because that's the
Mhm.
best place to start with his word. And
Mhm.
then we're going to go into a story or a scenario.
Mhm.
And then we're going to have guided questions after to say, what can you do? Because
Mhm.
that to me was, okay, yeah, I can pray with people and vent to people, but what am I supposed to do with it? It's like
Mhm.
when you bring it to
Mhm.
his feet, okay, I can let go, but God, what are my next steps? Because if I don't
Absolutely.
have a next step, I'm going to pick it back up and take it.
And now we understand why God doesn't like divorce, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to blend a family, and it's the brokenness. You're picking up broken pieces and you're trying to say, "Okay, God, we've got to put this back together, but I need to know what my part is to help you put this family back together
Right.
because that's what you truly want. You want us in unity, right?"
Right.
And I think that one thing I like about what you do, Brooke, and what you have done with the mother of your stepchildren's is that you've developed a relationship with her.
Yeah.
So, could we talk a little bit about that? I know I want to talk about the book too, but I also want to talk
Yeah.
about how good that is,
Yeah.
and how did that, because that wasn't easy. So, but I see today where you two are, and I think, wow, look how far they've come.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
could you share a little bit of that?
Absolutely. And I'm probably going to cry because it is like, there's watching God intervene is
Mm,
just always so beautiful and magical to me. So obviously in the beginning, I can relate to being a woman and now I have my own biological daughter, so I have that connection to a child. And so in the beginning, it was really hard. Um, she wasn't really open to conversation. There was a lot of hurt on her side too there.
mhm,
And so what really helped was we actually met with a counselor together.
mm,
And I advocate for counseling all the time because godly counsel it's scriptural.
mhm,
But having a third party who really doesn't have any skin in the game, just
mhm,
to hear both sides and then try to say, okay, what do we do with that? And so the counselor created that space for us. And in that moment, it was one of the first times me and the boy's mom had made like eye contact. And I just looked at her and I said, can I just tell you, I am not trying to take your place. And
mhm,
it was almost like you could feel like something breaking and just peace coming down. Because there were a lot of hurts, there were a lot of things said to her during the divorce and during all the custody, and
mhm,
that was really painful. On so much hurt on both sides, and so
mhm,
even though I wasn't a part of that, I came
mhm,
in and took this role, and so I can only imagine someone else trying to mother my child, and the insecurities that would bubble up of what if she ends up liking her more than me. And so, I
Mm-hmm.
tried to have that perspective, and in that moment, and just be real with her of like, hey, like I'm going to love the boys and I'm going to take care of them when they're with us, but you're their mom, like,
Mm-hmm.
period. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and in that process too, like, we, I used to call myself like their bonus mom because I hated the stepmom connotation.
Me
um
too.
it just, yeah. And so I actually ended up being called Brookie,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I've been called to this day. And I love that. Like, it's very affectionate to me. But I think that also helped us to have that separation of your mom and I'm Brookie. And so I think that helped too.
Mm-hmm.
But then after the counseling and after kind of doing that, it's like this slow healing process started where, um, we, like, one of our goals with Brad and I was just to try to be as many of the boys' events as possible. And so, kind of that proximity, it kind of forces you to communicate, forces you
Mm-hmm.
to get along better. And then, the boy's mom actually wanted to do, what we call combined family outings.
Oh,
And
that's good.
so we would pick, or she would pick like neutral locations where it's like, hey, let's go to Six Flags and we'll walk around Six Flags together. Hey, there's like Rock the Pumpkin was at their church. Like, let's go to that. And so we slowly started doing these things together. And I think for me, I was able to show her, like, see, I'm not your enemy. I'm not trying to take your place. Like, I'm just here as an extra. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
I tag along. And then, and that kind of, like, again, it was a slow process, but then it lended itself to where she would start including me. Like when her and, my husband would text like about the boys, she then created a group chat where I was a part of it. And
That's so
so,
good.
like, she did so many things. And I knew that her heart was, I mean, all of our hearts were really for the boys. We wanted the boys to be successful young men.
Mm-hmm.
And because of her past experience and then even stories that we'd heard, we were like, okay, we've got to make this work together. And that was
Mm-hmm.
really, it's like we all three decided to lay apart all of our feelings, all of our the past experience, all of our grudges, anything, put that aside and just focus on what's good for the boys. And so
So
we were
good.
able to do that. And so that was like, for years we just did these blend combined family outings. And then one, like, we used to split holidays because, in all honesty, the custody arrangements that the court said, they really, I feel like it's designed to be a template, but it's like, to
Mm-hmm.
me, the more you can work together and see the good of the kids, the better it is
Mm-hmm.
going to be for them. And so he,
Absolutely.
instead of, hey, you're going to get them for 2 weeks, we would split holidays. So that way nobody was going a super long period without seeing one of the other parents. And it was beautiful because and it was a routine for the boys that they just knew this is what it was going to be like. Well, spring break was one of those, like, we would get the first half, she would get the second half. And then one spring break, like, they were taking a trip and she actually invited us to go.
That's so
And
good.
this was a real test because it was kind of like, I'm sure a part of her was like, I do not want them here. And then a part of us was like, what is this going to be like? Because it's not just a couple hours, it's several days in the same place together. But it was awesome. Like, because it's one of those, again, it was, when I walked into it, I'm not like, this is my husband's ex wife. It was, this is Jessica, and we're coming to hang out with the boys and we're going to go skiing together. And
And we're
that,
family.
and
And
we're
we're
family.
family.
We're
Yeah.
family. Yeah. And we used to say, it's not what we thought we'd look like. And obviously, yes, we could completely agree. God hates divorce. And it's
Yeah.
awful because it is.
Mm-hmm.
It just hurts. Um, but we were able to turn it into this kind of
Mm-hmm.
magical thing. And that is where it's like, it was one of the first times where I was like, oh, we're friends. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
can talk to each other. And so that, I mean, one, I value peace in my home so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, our healing of that relationship and our working together was able to create a peaceful atmosphere. And so that was kind of how it it started and then how it's ended, where
Mm,
we can communicate, and there's not bitterness there.
mhm,
There's always continued healing, because we're humans, and there's always gonna, every new season, babies, toddlers, children, adult children, all
mhm.
these new seasons have introduced new challenges. But it's one of those, we continue to communicate and continue to talk through things, and put the boys' interests in mind, and we make it work.
That's why this book is going to be so powerful, Brooke, because I think that people need to read this book. They need to read about how to parent together because you are family. Just there isn't a step. There really isn't. It's a bonus, mom, like you said. It's an added to. I mean, I remember when I got into this, I thought, how could someone not want me to love
Mhm.
their children like they do? I mean, who wouldn't want more people to love your
Right,
children?
right,
You're
right.
just going to have someone else come into their life that's going to pray for them, that's going to
Yes,
speak life over them, that's going to bless them, that's going to love their children like their own grandchildren. And I just think that that's a beautiful picture. And I think that's why this book is so valuable
right.
because the separation, the enemy wants to come in and he wants to cause division. He
Yep,
wants to make you stay in that bitterness and stay in that pit of the anger and the hurt and just sit
yeah,
on it and just feed it instead of working together. And all it does is just cause more damage
right,
and it
right,
goes to the next generation, right? I mean, you can't even
right,
be in the same room at the birthday party. I mean, really,
right,
you have to have separate birthday parties because you can't
right,
even work it out
right.
to be at this one birthday party.
I was like, okay, if this is truly what I'm hearing from the Lord that I'm supposed to do, obviously there's going to be some opposition somewhere. And so some of it was against myself, of just
Mhm,
frustration of all the little meticulous things.
mhm.
But then when it was when it did come out, there were several people that got it. But the boy's mom was one, because she is actually in a stepmom role herself now.
Mhm.
And I had talked to her about this, and so she read it. But there was a few things um, that were said that she felt very attacked,
Yeah.
and of course, and my initial reaction at first was just like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?" Because I knew that wasn't my heart, that wasn't my intention.
Mhm.
But I was, I'd just written 70 pages. And so it's one of those, I
Mhm.
was going, what did I truly was like, what did I say?
Mhm.
Um, but I said, like, one, I value the peace that we have and the
Mhm.
relationship that we've built.
Mhm.
And so I was like, hey, like, so I actually unpublished
Uh-huh.
my book, and was like, I'm going to, and we were actually on vacation, like went on vacation right after this happened. And so I was like, I'm going to take the week to
Mhm.
pray and say, and go back through and have God
Mhm.
say, like, you need to change this, or no, this is fine, but you need to fix this. And so I went back in, and there were a few things where I was like, you know what, I totally understand. Like, I can see your perspective. I was like, that was not what I meant. But I was like, that's not, to me, the heart behind this was to make stepmoms feel less alone, and
Mhm.
let them know that other people, like that scripture, just know that other believers everywhere are going through the same battles as you.
Mhm.
That was
Mhm.
the heart. And so I was like, well, I don't need to attack someone or belittle her
Mm-mm.
or even bring up past to get that point across. And
Mm-mm.
so, like, there's stuff I was like, anything that I referenced her, like, especially as ex-wife, because that does have, just like
Mhm.
stepmom has a certain connotation, so does the ex-wife.
Mhm.
And so there were things that I went and I changed and I removed, just because I was like, well, I want to honor her and honor the place that she
Absolutely.
has. And
Mhm.
so, and again, I was like, God, like, you know my heart,
Mhm.
so show me where to fix the things that need to be fixed.
Absolutely.
And so I did. And it was one of those, I don't feel like it changed anything,
Mhm.
other than, like, it's still relevant. Like, right, this still connection is, hey, stuff happens, people hurt each other, here's what we can do about it. And so that was kind of the major thing. And then after that, like, I republished everything. But again, it felt like I needed to do this to honor her and honor her position and the growth. And even that, of, like, one of her concerns was like, okay, what if the boys read this and it changes their opinion of their mom. Well, it's like, that's not what I want either. I was like,
No,
so I did. I went through that process and adjusted things that needed to be fixed and let her know. And I feel like that was kind of another one of those pivotal moments between her and I of, right, the enemy was going to try to twist and manipulate and cause harm. Um, and so I appreciated her reaching out, because the truth is
mhm,
she could have just blasted me to other people and bashed me, and she
mhm.
didn't. She chose to come to me and let me know and give me the opportunity to make it right.
That's so
Um,
good. I
and
love
so,
that.
yeah, we were able to do that. And it's like, and I feel like it even kind of did her like a reconnect where we were able to
Mhm.
talk through some other things.
Well,
Um,
I want to stop you right there, Brooke, because I think that that point right there is so valuable, not just in, that's in every relationship.
yeah.
Okay. So when we hurt someone else,
Hmm.
God says for us to go to them in private
Yep.
and work it out. And I love that she chose to do it
Yes.
God's way and come to you in private and try to work it out. And that you not only heard her, but you loved her enough to say, okay, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hurt you. It's not worth
Right.
hurting you.
Right.
It's what the relationship is the most important part.
Right.
I've seen your journey. I've gotten to see it for the last 16 years,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful. And what you and y'all have done together, you and Jessica, I mean, wow.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know that that's only God. So
Yes.
I can't thank you enough for being on the show today. Is there any final thing that you'd like to say to the listeners before we say goodbye?
If you're not a stepmom, but you know someone, please, like, and I've even said, I'm like, if you can't afford the book, I will give it to you. I will mail it to you myself, because my goal is not to make money. My goal was to share
Mhm.
my heart and to make other people feel less alone. And so, like, that's truly my desire, is to share this devotional, so that to me, it's almost like they can feel God coming and sitting beside them and saying, even if my physical presence isn't there, that his will be, and that they will feel him as they go on this process and this journey.
Amen. Amen. So I just want to thank you again, girl. And I'm praying for you, as you know. And just thanks for coming on and sharing your heart with us today. We
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Hello, friends. I just want to take a moment and thank you for joining us today with Ministry with Coffee. We're so glad that you're here. And I want to ask that if this has moved you or encouraged you, the story that you just listened to today, that you would like our page and that you would share our page with your friends and your family. Together, if we work together, we can share the gospel of Jesus throughout the world at one cup, one story at a time. Thank you again for your support. We are so glad that you have chosen to minister and partner with us. Thank you again.